In this one, the hope is that something gets done, something gets improved. In each of these moments, and when the opportunity is available, the goal is that something be improved or something be understood that wasn't, or at least for the sake of the continuation of this agenda, the hope is that something new occurs, or some transformative particle now reorients the whole, or reorients fraction by fraction, facet by facet. It eventually reorients the entire model. It entirely remodifies the whole. And to concentrate on the kingdom agenda refers back to who are the ones that are also motivating this goal, the kingdom agenda. What is that about? What does it relate to about the world? And the kingdom agenda is simply that man starts to behave in accordance with the intention of his creator. It's known, the model is already declared, but simply to allow that signal to travel over, that it be articulated, it's the hesitation. Is that man becomes aligned with his creator's intention for him. And what that means, that he becomes aligned with his creator's intention for him, is that he fulfills the kingdom agenda. That is where all the arrows are pointing. It's still, well, it's testament to the depthness and the distraction that is capable of contaminating mass mind, and that he does not get the conclusion right away. It's not a fault of the organism by themselves. In this means they're exonerated, but even still the occasion is the same, that he does not immediately recognize the conclusion. From his different arrows of motivation, change inspire movements. And the goal there is for this certain type of transformation of the kingdom agenda. It's what he desires from the inside examination, and what he desires from the enforcement of the outside desideratum. Whatever change or transformation which is to occupy man, it's only in the sense source from the, it's only in the sense of the modeling, shaped or sourced from the kingdom agenda, in counterposition with what the world is on the outside. The model have prepared that. This the kingdom agenda, and from every other thing that he does on the inside, or the juxtaposition, the human jurisdictional juxtaposition, in contrast to the Tao, is that he's working on things bit by bit, trying to be better, trying to be smarter, trying to be more efficient. And we could continue in this technical fashion by sticking on efficiency. It's the grand trait in the arsenal of the authentically actualized, that the goal is efficiency in some respect, in its prime respect, that the individual be transformed, and as he's transformed, he immediately transforms each particle of his exertion. And in this case, he creates a field now around him to be symbolic of another insignia, which would translate to a potential, or at least ammunition for creativity, that he better transform himself, considering his uniqueness. But all directions are heading towards this state of the kingdom agenda. That's equanimity. The kingdom agenda is this state of equilibrium. It is this stage transition to stage transition in this form of action of redemption. Is stage transition until one reaches this kingdom agenda, fulfills it. And after he fulfills it, he instantiated in the respect into the accommodation of requalities, prerequisites, for there to just be the presentation. Just considering purely that it's one to be cognized, either entirely abstractly in imagination and in thought matter, and then or it be seen in its more fullest respect, its most truest form, when it's actually demonstrated in reality, meaning there are occupants and there are participants and they are embodiments and they are habitants of this special domain, this transfigurement of culture. Though it's still to picture as a solid, still lacking its material distinction, but it's tangible in that sense. It's the closest abstraction can get to tangibility in its degree of refinement. And then it's kingdom agenda that is the goal. That's the direction to head in. And what that takes on is these different sects, different styles, different interpretations, really forgetting their prior method of acquiring the truth of the situation, as in what is truly our directory, what is our goal, and what rubric are we using to detect it. I believe it's not so difficult to formulate a rubric to detect it. It's simply what is the greatest possible good for the greatest possible people. And it couldn't be anything else than in the transformation that comes in economics and markets and politics. That man can simply take a handle on. There are good ideas available in the culture, but what is the stupidity of man is that the impediments to good ideas get into the right places and into the right hands. And then from there, then it's open up to simply to how long man takes to do this thing. Well, then it can take however long and whatever that's required in time-wise for men to make the switch, for him to get to Eden and make the transition and let it be present. You can get a plane ticket and go there. Here it is. Well, because there will be other moments after the flight to also show another portion of the world and simply experimentally and then also just to be more certain in the other sense of it, just to also give a visual display accompanying the explanation. And then that too can be an aid for help, but from present position, from the trueness of yours analysis, it can be depicted conceptually, purely on how they should act and what are the one-to-one agreements that reality undergoes in this daily in the daily pages of eternity. What evidence from those individual realities could validate one's model? It's the primary practice of any truth, that it's a demonstrative. Can we declare it in reality? Is the case, and then also being able to charter a plane ticket and take somewhere into the global assortment of culture to find this unique culture that fulfills this equilibrated requirement that somehow one could formulate, gather, or congregate a certain population of humans and then initiate them in the most tentatively part from part, individual from individual, to scrutinize, and also the expression of the individual to have that autonomy to say, of course, I'm one of these agents that can sustain and hold up these requirements to bring about the state of Eden. And then in that, it's experimental, that there should be none of the standard human quandaries or quarrels between two humans that lead to anything: conflict, rivalries, wars, division, polarization, and so forth. So it's in many things in different places, and currently man is stashed up in different parts of the world. He's pocketed in different bits of the world, and it's not open earth just as yet. You have to, an individual should not, this is just a right of them, and they will continue, which is a theme of the explanation in general, and also that he will hand over his rights much more to his brothers and his sisters and his siblings in these darker places, and one of these are impediments or examples of impediments, and also the fact that there's not that generalized availability, that it should be found, it should be referenced, and it should be sustain and maintain and preserve and conserve further and further to permeate. Take on the moving picture, image of permeation, the spreading of a prairie fire, the way it casts, well, the way it expands, and how it starts from. But now imagine them almost as scatters landmines there, but each dot of permeation will eventually permeate into others of itself. Truth does not truth does not contradict itself. So eventually, when this permeation intersect or interlock with one another, there will be total agreement, as there should be, because they're all still resonating with the synchrarchy. And the synchrarchy, it's different. Well, it's what it says. It's the succession of a through line, let's say, and then by resonating with the synchrarchy, it's the mechanism for one to align in agreement with those that are also actualized, because the truth of an individual, it's just a reformulation of the grander truth. It's just the truth of the individual is still a reformulation of truth of a capital T, and truth of a capital T, it's whole. It's all encompassing, and it's all in agreement with itself. There are moments where it takes more discernment with the iridescence, because it has this fractality ness about it. There's fractal morphological design about it. So sometimes the truth itself requires a certain kind of discernment, and that this certain discernment is not, it has to be done through truthful, honest dialogue. And that's truthful speech, from truthful speech, and it's a tennis match between these two entities, and it's the production of emergence. It's where all good realizations occur. Oh, I didn't see it. I didn't know that. I missed this. And what I want to really confessing is the limitation of the instrumentality. That instrument is built in such a way that it always, almost always, and it's trying to, it seems, is motivated to misread situations, because there's not a clear oscillating signaling from one side to another, and that's between what one goal for the world is and how one acts. What your goal for the world is and how you act. What your goal for the world is and how you act. And then cognitive dissonance is immediately emerged from this interaction. And still what this means is the limitation of the instrumentality, that certain things are not just noticing in truthful speech, they really make themselves present. All what is his goal then when he combines them, how he scrutinized these individuals, this population, and created a culture, and removed the impediments to migrate across the world. Man is migratory by nature, but here in the formulation of the world of the humans, as if one has to assign the labeling for themselves, but they don't think as cosmopolitans. They are still at this depth. Let this be an ascending distinction, that there is this way to live, where to migrate another side of the world, one has to take on equipment and clearance and licenses, whereas as simple as he was when he was primeval, when he was his in general sense, when he was his least primeval and most modern, but he was him. He still didn't have these obstacles and loopholes to circumvent, to migrate across the world that his creator has given him. It's a birthright, but his birthright is immediately, and it's happening in his face. And amongst the humans, when they say something happening in your face, they mean in the most obvious sense. And it's happening in his face that he's being robbed this way, that it's not legal, and legal in the sense of your respect as a creature that was thrown into existence without your acknowledgement. There was no prior dispatcher of you have no prior sense of an agreement to this. It would have been clear, as all memory is clear as it relates to what one remembers of a place they've never been before. And that's an a priori, it's probably in the negative, it's in almost the negative space of one's memory. That it's not exactly, they do not exactly see or the litany of things that are theirs and how they can be intruded upon and how they can be trespassed upon. He does not said it in another, he does not immediately suspect his culture. And but in ultimacy, the goal to traject towards is Eden. And well, more will be said about Eden. There cannot be enough said about Eden until Eden is here, and then we can stop talking about it. Or at least one be labeled a truist on that matter. It is the only thing it's the only subject worth discussing. There are no other competitors. He was born into a culture. Him, in his actualized sense, had no hand in designing. The world was made without your consultation. The culture was created without consulting you, but it was created by it has to be created, correct? It has to emerge from mind. Mind is the only culprit here under the investigation. So your lineup is pretty short. There is only one suspect, and it's from mine. And because you won't consult on it, and you, in your most enlightened sense, once you consulted, you should already suspect that you're in a place that is not well designed, and it's your responsibility to redesign it. All that leads on to Eden and making it a reality somewhere. So that's the task that's on hand. Literally find a portion of the earth, congregate with like-minded spirits and begin to create. But for these individuals, the land represents the state as well, that it requires, it is not forgetting the innovation of the future, but also not foolish to discard the wisdom of the past, that there is that sweet, happy medium between being modern and being being comfortable in your habitat and not being primeval, but also remembering something from something primeval. That is just downskilling and being a little more minimalistic in what one needs to survive. It doesn't really take much to just survive here, but depending on where you are. And what color flag has this shadow across your domain of traversal? It's entirely out of the liking, or maybe not out of the liking, that one tries to form this place or incorporate, form this type of thinking, or also incorporate a little more of the what should not be or what can be jettisoned out of one's overhead cost. Hot balloon. What can be traversed out, and most of it is the things that are standards and ubiquitous through the religious texts, speaking from now one side to have a certain lifestyle, a certain principle of output, and then also what are the things that one could just let go of, or those habits that are too hoarding on necessity, that just that propel and propagate unconscious, low awareness, self-destructive behavior. These are the things to jettison out. And of course, it must be said about speaking up at the pinnacle in the degree to stretch out this entire philosophical disposition by displacement of model. It has to be instantiated in actual existence. It has to be instantiated in a locality. It has to have that reality to it, at least. And that's where it demands to take place. But this is the emergence from the horizon. Whenever a man is at the edge of something, he's never at the edge of it he's never at the edge of it statically. He's not stationary at the horizon. The horizon is always deploying itself into the past. And as it does this, man has a new horizon by this across the x-axis and v-axis intergenerational transmission. He goes from the y to the x, and then he also has the z, that's three-dimensional, up to divinity, so that he takes a more meta view on his dispersal in each direction, from his parent to parent, from his community to his culture, and then to his divinity. It's a mechanism, it's a manner for him to do so. The goal ultimately, it has to be instantiated in reality, where it is accessible and it can be referred to and it can be remembered. That's the goal. And then afterwards, it will be subsumed into a repository of man's disk-like depiction, where the horizon is the outskirts, it's the edge, and repository of this knowledge pool. It's what's known about man. It's a collective consciousness, right? Where this repository is the repository of the collective consciousness, and then there's the collective unconsciousness beyond the horizon. And you constantly imagine this figure around the edges, represented as the spark of the present, that the present is a thing that's constantly being depleted, correct? It means that there's a depletion to it. The understanding is not known. It's what this represents, that it's constantly being depleted here. And each of these dots could be different positioning, one to and consecutively, one to how many to, and also from zero, because it represents time equals zero, because there was a certain period that man was not aware, and the entire world is only known from this through this mechanism. So each of these way his temporal horizon flips. The closer he is to the before death demarcation or assignment, the before death, before birth has to be replaced. The before birth assignment, and his temporal horizon flips whenever he's somewhere around this. It could be whenever, but usually it's around this spot where he traverses from youth into that 24-year period I've spoken so much about, this neocortical region, the neocortex, after it develops. And then his temporal horizon has to flip somewhere in here, because he's been in the environment long enough now to get a certain understanding of it, where his actions give him the result he desires. It's ultimately the goal, to get a perfect performance. It wants to go across in there. And it's not always sound for this, but the mind is always, it's not always displayed as this, rather, but the mind is also always aware that this is the ultimate goal, because because the body behaves in a certain way that's not aware of to consciousness. And so his temporal horizon flips anywhere here, and he stops to see his life as from birth to his present, but from his present to his death, or at least it becomes more salient in the mind of the agent. But then that's what happens. But each moment, one is always potential to have a qualifying, or let's say standard or average grasp of the environment or their culture. Just depending on what they are, there could be some architectural issues as well. And sometimes these architectural mutations end up in some way, could be a better understanding of the world, because each tweak, each alteration that's made in that genetic sequencing alters the way the life is depicted. But life is always looking from the other side, as from the observer side, onto agency. If there is a certain beneficial trait, you can find Wallace and Darwin in this type of thinking. But if there's any beneficial trait, it saves that. It keeps that. It becomes, but not only in that sense, it's also recognized by other agents, because man is a mastery at depiction. So what that means is that he rapidly transmits memes. transmits ideas, just little tiny ideas, things to change about the self. Currently, it started giving out thumbs up of approval much explicitly, at least in this area. It's just a meme that's been propagating lately, that's been under observation. They put the hymns in the pockets and they put their thumbs out, right? Something as trivial as that, but these are tiny memes, and whenever one copies these memes, they immediately arrest them if they're nice and soothing and cool enough. That's usually the tagline that goes along with it. But it's copied from the observer side, and if it works out. So each alteration in the genetic, the hereditary component of the individual, each alteration in this mechanism, which is this genetic information of heredity, and each time that gets transmitted, it changes how the world is perceived. But the way the world is perceived are all attempts. They are attempts. They are challenges. They are challenging attempts in a way, but to see the quality and test the test. It's like an alpha or beta test. It just means how does it perform, and in different ways it performs otherly. But from the creativity of heredity, from the genetic focus group, or it's looking for a perfect individual. But in all its mechanism, that's just one way, or for achieving success in all its mechanism, and it's looking for that individual also in the genetic way. It's also looking for that individual in the spiritual way, and it's looking for that individual in the social way. It's in all these different from all these different divisions, that it's able to try to find this individual and isolate them from all these as a hub of all these directions that are hopefully beneficial. So it's crowding amongst itself. The truth has a way of forming a rendezvous. So whenever the truth has a rendezvous, it creates it exists in the individual. So it should be. It should be expected to recur. That once it's in the individual, that's the goal. It wants that to be emerged, and it wants this in multiple places, and then that creates a certain type on the world. It's insanity. It's ludicrous. That it's preposterous and absurd that these things are possible, but they are possible. They're clearly possible because all these are required to show another side of the world. The humans have created themselves. The humans have created themselves in such a way that some side are more attractive and other sides aren't. But each side that is made attractively, that other humans congregate towards, are made by other humans. So, but humans are machines of propagation. But it's not clear that this is not the goal. It's not clear that this is the goal also. But it is the goal in effect, because there is knowledge. It's almost that they're able to create light. Light define not only life-sustaining, they are more useful to life, to live in, creating economies that are most useful to live in, and some that are not so useful to live in. But the ones that are not useful to live in, they're humanitarian about it. They're charitable about it. They send their best regards about it, but they wouldn't send over ideas that are transformative and make constant changes. And it's comical. It has to be, because the whole thing is a grand stupidity, but also the comedy goes away when there's time to actually be active. But even this is one of the should be the most potent, innovative motivators that are out there, but it doesn't immediately do with the truth. That man doesn't immediately become incited. He doesn't. The next level is that he has to feel the consequences of his actions. He's distanced from the reach. The spark gap is too far, so he doesn't really get it. He gets it after almost. Because of the distance now in light years, in both sense of it, and it takes time. It takes time to reach, but that has to be done faster. You have to accelerate the increase and expansion of consciousness. Consciousness is that commodity. There's almost fuel, that imagined thoughts were fuels themselves. That the thoughts themselves, what informs it? Well, what informs it is a thought. So it doesn't really do much to state it, but in its gaze, it's that it's missing. Let's say, let's begin from there. That it's missing and it needs more of itself. It wants to increase itself. So how does it increase itself? It has to duplicate, but it cannot self-duplicate. It has to be worked out from the outside in. That if you were to leave man simply stable and static, he does not do much armchair philosophy. It takes him actually having a hands-on experience with the world that he can now start to have much more. But he has to have some initial start. He has to have a starter for his engine, and his starter itself you can consider it, because in both in the metaphysical components that they're both spinning things, so they both produce force, but it produced different. It's produced by different histories. That the force of the engine it's made by itself. It's self-generating, but there's an initial force. But this force is of a different quality than the rest of the force, because it's a certain segment of force that it's not self-generated. It's the prior self-generating capacity, and it only gets man warmed up to start to think better about his world. So the issue is far from him, and then it takes him knowing and interrogating and asking questions that there should be that curiosity in this direction, and there should be that means for it to be. So then each moment, or each place rather, so each place is not only receiving the best regards from its surrounding, but also it's receiving the best from its surrounding. Go over and do your best if you're already one of the best. In that way, spread on what it is that is the changing thing. Spread on your knowledge. It's not a place of winning. The fact that he doesn't take that he's depleting, constantly depleting. He doesn't see himself in this way. That he's going in this direction. So that thought itself, but it doesn't do much on its own. It has to be associated to other things that brings it in light, and what it also brings in light. So there's the correlationship between both activities. So in a sense, he does not live in this altruistic way already. That is the goal of whoever. You're not adding the suffix of an alien, that you're this alien, you're Americanian, or you're Brazilian, or you're Leon, from wherever you are. If you are Homo sapien, that is the only alien you need to be to start working on this, to separate it so far. But I'm now forgetting the name of this technical question, how this one. Let's see. Okay, what is to be done now? The main question. Well, it's mainly, first it's on me really to go, or it's on whoever else that wishes to race to it, but to start building it somewhere. How the humans have made up their mind is that you have to run for politics, and the explanation itself just doesn't cut it like it used to do. Or you only just have to say these things, and the truth immediately, and the truth of